Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our next live session. Super excited for you to be here and to join us, of course, amongst the American election madness. So I appreciate you joining us today. Obviously, it will take us just a couple of minutes for everyone to join us. But as people are starting to trickle in, let's begin. So if you're new to Uplevel Live, hi, I'm Robin Cohen. I'm the co-founder of Uplevel. Really excited for you guys to be here. Move Up Level is a micro learning online experience. So every single week, we have thought leaders in the space of entrepreneurship, career, even life, that are experts in their area of expertise, that share with you their knowledge in different areas so that you can up-level your career or your business or even certain aspects of your life. And so I'm super excited to have Tara Hunt with me today. I'm sure you're used to it every week now, because every week I say I've known this person for so many years, but I have. And I think that that's the beauty about social media and the internet, and that, it allows us to keep in touch with people no matter where we are in the world. And so I've known Tara for quite a long time now and have been following her career for many, many, many years. And when she said, yes, I'll do this, of course, I was thrilled beyond belief. And so again, I know that a lot of you are not, new to any form of webinars, but just in case that you are, what we would like for you to do is, in the chat area, we want you to engage with us. Tell us, where are you tuning in from? I'm tuning in from Salt Lake City. Tara's going to be tuning in from Toronto, Canada, my hometown. So share with us where you're tuning in from. Share with us, where are you in your career? Are you starting a business? Why are you here today with us? What can you learn from, digital marketing? So please share that all in the chat. But as we're getting into the audience Q&A, that will happen after Tara's presentation, put your questions in the Q&A section and you'll see that below us. So again, chit chat in the chat section, questions in the Q&A. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tara. So Tara Hunt is the CEO of Truly Inc. and co-founder of Phlywheel. She has over 20 years of experience in market research and strategy on both client and agency side. She wrote one of the first books on how the social web is changing business, was named one of 2013's Entrepreneurial Women to Watch by Entrepreneur Magazine, and one of those influential women in technology in Fast Company. She has built an engaged and enthusiastic business audience online of over 350,000 followers, including a significant number of thought leaders. She is a LinkedIn influencer, followed by over 220,000 people. Her SlideShare presentations have been viewed by over 2 million times. She is in the top 5% of Twitter users worldwide with over 50,000 followers. And she produces a regular web series on YouTube called The Phlywheel Factor, which has over 10,000 subscribers. Tara, so excited to have you here in our, like I said, election madness week. Hopefully it's a week, it won't be a month. Let's see. So I'm thrilled that you were still able to be here with us. And I know it's gonna be an amazing session. And so just wanted to start off with a couple of questions to kind of like warm up the audience. So first of all, congrats on launching Phlywheel. I loved your launch event. I could take a few cues from your launch event. It was brilliant. And honestly, everyone, follow Phlywheel, follow Truly. If they have an event, attend it. It will be the most entertaining time of your life. It was so great. I loved
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thank you. It was fun to produce.
Yeah, so I can imagine. And I'm gonna have to get myself some like metallic, screen behind me, something fun like that. But it was amazing. And so again, congrats. Tell the audience why you started Flywheel.
Oh, that's a great question. And I should also start by saying thank you so much for having me here, Robin. It is an honor. And thank you for everybody that in the middle of this very stressful time is taking some time out. Because, many of you from the comments are from the US. And so, yeah, I can understand that right now you're kind of, well, I'm in Canada, I'm doom scrolling, so I can't even imagine what you're doing. But as far as Flywheel goes, so Flywheel is the productizing of us being able to help people with their marketing. And so over the years, my main company, Truly Inc., which is a consultancy, was like growing, and we were taking on bigger clients and bigger projects, and we were growing as a team, and it was getting more and more expensive for us to run the agency. And so we couldn't take on these really wonderful small business projects that I used to take on when I was a freelancer, and it was really breaking my heart. So Flywheel was a response to that. It was like, how can we scale our services, create something that's super affordable for a small business that, may just they're okay with doing it themselves, but need that hands-on guidance here and there. And that's where the idea for Flywheel came from.
I love it. And do you feel that, also in terms of what has happened this year, right, the pandemic, do you feel that that also kind of pushed the need for it?
Yeah, well, it's funny because we were planning on launching it pre-pandemic. Like we had been working on it since like last fall
Yeah.
already. Um, so, when the pandemic happened, we looked at like everybody looked at each other, was like, okay, is this actually still a good idea? And we look back and we're like, actually, I think it might even be more necessary altogether. We did pivot a little bit from our original idea, which was, a lot more one-on-one time. And we created more of a community because when we launched, that's what people were craving, was like a place where they kind of felt like they could escape the day-to-day like craziness and just like be with a bunch of like-minded, like, I love marketing, I want to learn more about marketing types, a positive community that people were loving the community. So we started thinking more about like the one-on-one and education part, just like you've done here with Up Level. But then we were like, you know what? People are inundated with education right now. That was like everybody had a webinar. I was like, okay, we don't want to add to that. And then also the one-on-one was fine, but I think people just kind of needed to gather and conversate and have a nice place to come. So we really started focusing more on community, and that's where we're at now. We have a beautiful knowledge center for people to like go in and, pick and choose where they want to learn from there.
Nice. So my next question is, as a female entrepreneur and as an entrepreneur in general, but of course, I think that there are things that pertain to being a female entrepreneur as opposed to not. And so what do you think the one thing is holding back women from starting their own businesses, or even, getting the necessary funding to scale their businesses? Because I know that some people in our audience, I know that they're either considering like a side hustle or freelancing, whatever. And honestly, whether you're a freelancer, you have a side hustle, or you really are launching a business, it's all very entrepreneurial. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we've come a long way, baby, but we are still very much stuck in a bit of an old-fashioned paradigm when it still comes to our households. My son has grown up and gone away, but a lot of my friends, a lot of fellow female entrepreneurs, they have young children, and they still say, like, their husbands are very hands-on or their partners are very hands-on, but they still take on the lion's share of like planning and thinking and putting things together. And a business requires a lot of that, whether you're just yourself as a freelancer, or you also have like staff, that you're answering to as well. So, then you're working kind of two full-time jobs. So it's exhausting. And a lot of people, they think, oh, entrepreneurship, it's going to give me all this freedom and I can do what I love. Well, let me tell you, entrepreneurship is a lot of hard work. And you end up getting bigger rewards from it, but the input is a lot more. So if you have a lot going on in your home life, which there's a lot of women do, they're taking care of either kids or even extended family, especially during COVID, has been eye-opening to say the least. Like, to start a business on top of that, oh, it's exhausting. So I can understand that slowing even the most ambitious woman down. And then the second part you asked about was finance. The truth is that there's still a lot of bias out there. Men still get funded. I think something crazy like 50x women get funded. Even a small business loan, we tend to get small business loans. So there's there's a lot of factors going on that that still have to like I said, we've come a long way, baby, but we still have a long ways to go on that front.
We do, definitely. And yes, I mean, that's always a topic of conversation, is that women always take on, 2 to 3 times more in the household. And so, yes, and then you end up having, 2, 3, 4 jobs that you're doing, and it's just a lot to manage. So I think it's something that we personally need to figure out, but I think as a society, we also need to figure out, what are the things that are going to give women the opportunity and the choice to start a business or whatever that looks like. So I definitely agree with that. Okay, so final question before you have the stage is, do you believe having a side hustle is important for one's career, right? So again, a lot of the audience, they've got a full-time job and their career is really important to them. But I think that there is something to be said about having a side hustle. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, having a side hustle will help you grow and learn in so many ways beyond what your day-to-day is. It'll help you stretch your imagination, what you're thinking. And when I'm hiring, I always prefer to hire somebody that does have a side hustle, even if it's just a blog or, making cards on the side or something and selling them on Etsy, like something that maybe isn't exactly related to their work, but it shows that they're like really wanting to learn something else. And stretch their learning.
Okay, good point. So everyone out there, if you don't have a side hustle, maybe think about that, because I do think that is a good point. I think that it just means that you are creative, or you're ambitious, or you're driven, or you want to up level your skills, whatever that looks like. But yes, I totally agree with that. Well, thank you. And, without further ado, I want to pass the stage over to you. So everyone, I will be in the background, and I will be, taking notes and whatnot, so that I'll be engaging with you in the chat. Do you remember that Tara is giving away not 1 or 2, but 5 Phlywheel memberships, okay? And the way to get that is by engaging with us. So, please leave your comments. Definitely have some questions for her, so that we can put you in the running for that. So, Tara, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robin, for that wonderful introduction and great early conversation. I have many slides today. I will want to get through all of them. I'm guessing we have a hard stop in 45 minutes, so let us begin. So Robin already talked a little bit about me, so I'm not going to rehash this at all, but that is the spelling of Phlywheel is P-H-L-Y, wheel, and my main company is Truly Inc. What we're going to talk about today is number one, and this is the fundamental ground floor, absolute, you cannot skip this, is finding your audience when it comes to digital marketing. This will include narrowing your audience research and insights, and we'll talk a little bit about free research tools. And then we're going to take that knowledge from understanding who you're trying to reach, and we're going to build it into a bit of a strategic plan. Although this section is a little lighter weight because I really want to dig into the notion of finding your audience. So we'll go through putting together a strategy, which is like goes through the elements of the strategy and planning it out, and then we're off to the races. And I'm going to try to leave some time for questions at the end because that's where the prizes come into place. So let's start with finding your audience. Now, this is really why I went into marketing in the first place, is because I'm fascinated with people. I'm fascinated with human behavior on all levels, and especially. Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you. Oh, when I say sorry, Siri always thinks I'm talking to her. So yeah, I'm really, really interested in what makes somebody tick. And what I loved about marketing is that's really what marketing is. It's to know and understand the customer so well that the product or service that you're selling fits him or her and sells itself. And that's really why it's important to narrow your audience. And it's important because really, you don't have all the money in the world. It doesn't matter how big or small your business is. Even Coca-Cola doesn't have all the money in the world, and they lose market share. So they want to know who their audience is, right? You need to maximize the money that you do have, and you need to make sure that when you do get in front of that audience, they take notice. It's not just another ad that sort of is ignored as it flies by them. So when it comes to narrowing your audience, a lot of people start in this more demographic side of things. They say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I've narrowed my audience, college educated women, 21 to 34, living in cities, making 75K a year. I mean, that sounds narrow. That doesn't include everybody, but it's still way too broad. These demographics, they don't say anything about who the audience is and how to find them and appeal to them. Just think of how many different college educated women, 21 to 34, living in cities there are, and what their interests are and what they're looking for. Now, it is a little bit better to go into like psychographics, and you might have heard about psychographics as a really great way to target people. It's like using job titles, industries, and even interests, like, oh, I'm interested in tennis, or I'm interested in something. And this might be slightly better because you can start to assume shared interests and experiences to connect with them, but it's still not quite narrow enough. The best way to connect to somebody and the best way to narrow somebody is through this idea, this framework called jobs to be done. And that's identifying your audience, identifying your customer through what they're looking to solve or achieve in life. What in that moment, and I think Google calls this micro moments, is your customer looking for? And if you haven't heard of jobs to be done, the concept is this: customers don't buy products and services, they hire various solutions at various times to get a wide array of jobs done. So a job to be done could be like, I need to pack healthy lunches for my kids that take me like 5 minutes in the morning, for instance. Or, I need to, or the job that I need to have done is like replace my washing machine. Those are jobs to be done in various different moments. And they could be broader jobs to be done, like, instance where I think it was Kay earlier was saying, you know, you're looking for a new career. That's a job that to be done. You're here because of that. You're up leveling because of that, right? So the way to frame this is when this happens, I want to, you know, have this happen so I can like have this outcome. And when you're thinking about it, think about it in terms of your customer, right? So your customer is saying, you know, when I have to pack a lunch for my kids, I want to save time but make sure that, you know, it's healthy. So yeah, I can sleep in a little bit every morning. That's like really figuring out what a job to be done is. So when it comes to finding your best audience, because you know that jobs to be done framework here that we looked at is like, okay, great. Well, how do I answer that question? Where do I start, right? Well, the where you want to start is finding your best audience, and your best audience isn't just like even just in that jobs to be. It's like you can't always start with that jobs to be done. You need to start somewhere. So this is a framework that I use to start to triangulate into who that customer could be. And this does go a little bit into the sort of the psychographic sort of side. So your best customer consists of the following characteristics. Number one, they have a need or desire for what you're selling, even if they don't know it yet. You know, you can think of a lot of products where you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that existed. Now I need it. Number two, has the ability, inclination to pay for what you're selling. I remember years ago, Groupon put a lot of businesses in front of people, but they weren't necessarily the right people for those businesses. And number three, talks with others who are just like them. And I love number three because number three is really, this is where the power is in figuring out who your best audience is, because this is the social part. If you can get in front of an audience who talk to each other all the time, so you know, moms are good on like new moms are really great audiences because they're social with one another. So let's talk about having a need or desire. Which of the following do you offer with your product or service? Number one, are you a vitamin? Are you a painkiller? Or are you a performance enhancer? And what I mean by that is, number one, a vitamin is a nice to have. We all, you know we need to take our vitamins, but we don't always remember to take our vitamins. So are you a nice to have, or are you a painkiller? A painkiller you never forget to take because you need to solve a pain point, or that's where the job to be done comes into play. But number three, you don't just have to be nice to have or a painkiller. You can also be a performance enhancer. And performance enhancers do really well because they improve someone's performance and result in significant way to make them look cool, help them make money, make them look smarter. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there that are performance enhancers. For instance, like you know, a very cool, you know, branded pair of shoes, maybe for a teenager going to school. Like that's not a vitamin or a painkiller. That's a performance enhancer. Although they may say it's a painkiller. Now, the second one can and will pay full price. As I said, we don't just want to like say free, or here's a special deal all the time, because we're not necessarily getting in front of the right customers. And I've seen a lot of companies really hurt by couponing, or they're trying to target too broad of a market that can't necessarily afford to buy what they're selling. And then, of course, talking with others who are just like them. To note here, this isn't about influencer marketing. It's not about having hundreds of thousands of followers. It's just about being connected to others who are just like them. And ideally, because, you know, everything is social these days, everything's digital, these connections will be visible somehow online. So they gather in some sort of online community, or they follow each other on social media, or they, you know, talk with each other on a Facebook group or something. An example here of a good audience is friends of mine run Highball TV, which is it's like a Netflix, but for people who like film festivals. It's a very cool streaming service. It's very niche, right? And we help work on them, work on this with them. So their good audience is um, who we call film festival enthusiasts or cinephiles. This is their target audience. And those cinephiles, do they have the need or desire? Yeah, absolutely. They're always looking for indie films and documentaries. Can they pay? Yeah, festival passes aren't cheap, and they'll pay a premium to support a good film. And then do they socialize with each other? Hell yeah. I don't know if anybody in the audience right now are cinephiles, but like the cinephiles are always going online and talking with each other about film theory, etc., both online and off. So they're spending all this time together. And their job to be done now that we know this, now that we know that this is their perfect audience, is this. When I seek entertainment, I want to find intellectually challenging movies by up and coming directors. So I, and this is key, can be first to discover this hidden gem, impress my fellow cinephiles. That last piece is their motive. There's a motivation right there, right? Their motivation is to be like the first. As a cinephile, you want, to be king or queen cinephile at the end of the day. This was, in our research, which we found. So now that we have some direction, let's find out more. And don't worry, I'm going to go into, with the research, how we found out a lot of this information. So we know who, but what are we going to do with this? And I'm going to show you some of the free ways to research more about your audience and how to apply this to your strategy. So I'm going to continue with this cinephile line of thinking here too. So where we want to know this about your audience. You want to know where they're hanging out online and offline. Professional associations they belong to, groups and forums they're hanging out in. Are they reading certain publications and media on a regular basis? Are they following thought leaders and influencers for their information? Are they attending events? What social media platforms are they on? Who and what, do they have a special language that they use? Cinephiles, I mean, gosh, they had so many crazy hermeneutic. They use words that last time I heard was in cultural studies in university. Interests and affinities. What are their specific attitudes and behaviors? Their life stages, rules that they have that are written and unruled. Their history of their community. A lot of things. If you know this about them, you can connect with them better. And then the when, why of it is, where are they on their journey? What do they currently use to solve their jobs to be done? Because a lot of people will have those jobs and be hacking it somehow, right? What are their soft stuff? What are their core motivators? I talked about it, that need to be first, the need to be like the king of this knowledge. What are they most afraid of, hopeful for? Where are their expectations? You're not going to answer all of these questions, but the more questions in this matrix that you can answer, the better off you're going to be in really understanding how to connect to this audience. So when it comes to the cinephiles, they're connected through interests, not necessarily associations, but they're part of lots of groups and forums. They were part of a lot of Reddits and subreddits, publications, there's specific publications, the Nerdist, Mental Floss, these are all very cinephile publications. They're thought leaders, and you might be like, who are these people? But they're super famous in this audience, like Lindsay Ellis, Tony Zhao, Ted Hope. You've never heard of them, but they're super famous for this group. Events, of course, the film festivals, and then social media. They use a lot of different hashtags. These are all opportunities to find, follow, and listen. We do this. I've been doing for many years a form of ethnographic research where I actually immerse myself into the worlds of these audiences and start to really see the connections and hear them talk about things. And all of these are inroads into that. And that's what you're going to want to do when you're finding out more about your audience. So how do you find those answers to those questions? How did we find out this about the cinephiles? And by the way, I see that there's questions. I will come to them at the end. I just don't want to interrupt them in between. So number one, and there's a ton of cool tools from Google, is the free tools that Google has. So they have their basic search tools. We all know basic search tools, although there's like all sorts of this search hacks. There's all sorts of different ways to search Google that you can get like specific information out of. There's Google Scholar. I'm not going to click through a lot of these because, just for time's sake, but Google Scholar has often like studies that you can download that are on various different groups of people, behavioral analysis, that sort of thing. Google News, I put on Google News alerts for that specific language that may be used by this audience. Google Image Search, yeah, it's the same as Google Search, but it is not as well. You can actually, through Google Image Search, sometimes find like stats and infographics that you might not on the first page of the Google search. Google Public Data Search, and this is really cool because you go into Google Public Data Search, and when you can find actual statistics and research studies and public data from government organizations here. Consumer research tools. Then they have Google Trends, and Google Trends is really cool. You can see what people are searching at any given time. You can see the searches that are coming up out of nowhere. You can see what areas they live to see where people are searching for something more or less. Think with Google is their research branch. So, and I'll make sure that Robin has it has like the deck here, which will have clickable links and you can go check them out. But Think with Google is their research branch, and they often have like a lot of industry vertical data that they collect, shopping insights. So you can see like how products rise and fall over time to understand where, I mean, it's very general. It's like the big ones, but it's still kind of interesting. Market Finder. So for anybody who's thinking about going international, Market Finder will help you decide where you would want to start, like maybe targeting if you're doing ads, Google ads, or you want to create a language in another website, or a website in another language, sorry. Market Finder will say, hey, you should actually make your website translated to Spanish because your Ecuadorial language or Ecuadorial market or something is going to be big for this. Consumer Barometer has a lot more data for you. YouTube Trends will also show you the kind of things that people are looking for, and you might actually be surprised. They're looking at maybe like what kind of like new gadgets or whatever they're looking for, but they're also sometimes looking at like different trends in ideas, home ideas and stuff. Google Surveys, it's a paid for tool, but you can send out surveys and target your market through Google Surveys to get back information. And then the account tools, Google Analytics. And I can't really go into Google Analytics, but Google Analytics is a super powerful tool when you do have a website to start to really understand how people are finding you, what kind of people are finding you through Google Analytics or through your website. Oh, and then of course your keyword planner. One of the things that I actually really love to do is to find out if I put in like my general category. So for instance, digital marketing, a keyword planner will show me all the other things that people are searching for and how many searches in each region. And this is going to help me understand how to word things, the kind of specific things that people are looking for instance. The next one is Facebook Audience Insights, and I'll make sure that they didn't move my cheese. So this is a free tool that Facebook loves to hide all of the time for people. If you're part of the Facebook Business Manager, you can access this tool. It's basically Facebook/ads/audience insights. And I'll just show you a quick little demo of this one. So when it pops up, I just say everyone on Facebook. It defaults to the United States, but and we'll keep it at that, but you can put it to any region. You can put also smaller regions. So if you're more local, it has your age and gender, etc. here. You can say like in the advanced language, relationship status, education. There's even like life events, that sort of thing. Parents, they have some different market segments. But my favorite here, and where I use this tool, is in interest. So for instance, if we go back to the cinephiles, so we already know that they like the Toronto International Film Festival. They some of the other Cannes Film Festival. Oh, that's the city. Not the city. Cannes, Lions. Okay, so we'll just put those for now. So they're film festival goers. So you put all the film festivals in here. So people 18 and above in the US that like the film festivals, you're going to get, oh, here, this is on Facebook, 450,000 people. You can see like the gender and age distribution here. You can see their relationship status. Oh, lots of single people. Maybe that's why they like to gather online a lot too. Very educated, college, grad school, job titles. These are pretty general down here. You can also see like what locations they're in. This is indexing as compared to all of Facebook, but you can also, check by audience size, la la la. But this is where the magic happens, is in the page likes section. So the page likes is basically people who like this also like these things. And in this case, you can start to glean a lot of information about your audience. And you remember when I was like, do they have influencers? Are they part of organizations? That sort of thing. Well, now you can start to see. So, they're ACLU, Move On, they're watching PBS, they're fans of AOC and God. They tend to lean pretty left wing, it looks like here politically. Very let's see, sci-fi. So there's this, they're also into sci-fi. So you can start to look down and see, what else they're really into. Science, that's interesting. So people who are into film festivals also like science. Whole foods, so healthy eating, and you start to get a good sense of who they are once you dive into this this audience. And so you can do that with, you just type in the interest. They give you some predetermined interests. I always kind of ignore them because I think they're too general. But I do know, if I know like one data point about my audience, like I know that, they watch a certain TV show, or they attend a specific event, or they follow somebody specific, then I can glean a lot more information. And of course, the more data points that you have, the better. So that is, whoops, I just clicked on that again. So that's Facebook Insights, and that is a free tool in the back end of Facebook that I love using to get a little bit more information. There's also Instagram hashtags. So if your audience does spend time on Instagram, and you're going to start to find this out, and part of it is going to be going to these different platforms, what you can start to do is like type in hashtags that you think are relevant, and then they'll start to give you all sorts of other hashtags that, this movie scenes, so cinephilia, movie stills. You can see all of the ways in which they're hashtagging their posts. And then, of course, you want to start to follow this hashtag, and you want to start to look through these posts and take the time to understand what the language that they're using, and the people that are connected within this audience, and the kind of films that they like. Then you can go over to Twitter, which has some great free tools as well. A lot of people don't use the advanced search on Twitter, but you can go into the advanced search on Twitter and you can really narrow it down to, like the kind of phrases they use, the accounts they're following. You can look at who mentions what accounts, and you can start to build. And what I like to do is starting to build a bit of like I start to create groups of like create those lists of people to follow. I won't necessarily follow them all, but I'll put together a group of cinephiles. I might make it a private group so that only I can see, and then now I can start to see what hashtags they're using, and what kind of language they're using, and who's connected to who. Once again, that really getting a sense of who they are through that ethnographic research, which takes time, but is so worth it, because you're gonna, at the end of the day, you're gonna want to build relationships with people within that audience. And yeah, and when you're looking for trends within this audience too, and how you can respond to it and jump on that trend because it's relevant for you and your audience. There's additional ideas and sites that are out there. There's Reddit, as I mentioned earlier. There's usually, like, there's so many different audiences, subreddits out there. You're in the event space. There's tons of different event pros sort of subreddits out there with people chatting. Pinterest is really great depending on your product or your service. Like, there may be whole Pinterest communities, and there's also a lot of research that you can do on Pinterest. YouTube video searches as well. You can start to find influencers that reign supreme there. So all those influencers and thought leaders that I talked about before, like Lindsay Ellis and Tony Zhao, they have huge YouTube channels that talk about basically film theory. LinkedIn groups, there might be LinkedIn groups that where they're gathering. Facebook groups, of course. Quora, which is still around. There's people often pointing to data and insights around audiences there. Medium, there's definitely going to be people writing on Medium. Even if you're local, Foursquare becoming less relevant, Google Local, Yelp, you can start to find what's happening locally where people are gathering. Of course, now TikTok, and now to a lesser extent Snapchat. In that film area, Flickster, Rotten Tomatoes. If you're in the travel industry, TripAdvisor. If you're in the arts, DeviantArt and Wattpad. Wattpad is a writing community. Once again, if you're a writer, Goodreads. You can find great community interactions there and get a lot. Meetup.com. It's still relevant. Lots of people still meet up locally. Well, maybe not during COVID as much. And like lots more out there. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into each of these sort of social platforms where people are encouraged to come together under interests and start basically stalking people, just to put it not so nicely, but that's what you're not being not nice. You're just trying to find out. You need to be definitely curious. And then you can fill this in once you when you're going there as you search around. So you have now a whole bunch of information about your audience. Now it's time to build a strategy. And you're like, what? Well, this is what a strategy is. It's Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with a candlestick. So to build your strategy, to put that strategic overview together, you need to pull together your audience. That's your Colonel Mustard in the conservatory, where you're going to find them, and how will appeal to them. Well, I mean, the analogy kind of breaks apart a little bit there, but I always like to think of it as a clue game. You're trying to put together those three pieces. And those three pieces, if you know who your audience is, where you're going to find them, and you're going to figure this out through all that research, you're going to be like, wow, there's so many Reddit groups, or there's so many Facebook groups, or there's so many Instagram hashtags. You're going to see where the volume is, and then how to appeal to them. That's where you're going to get through your digital ethnography. That's where your strategy is. We're going to reach this person here by doing this, is basically the overview of your strategy. But there's more to it than that. There are components of your strategic plan that you're going to want to put together. So the first one we just talked about, who you're talking to. That is, you know, as you go through and you triangulate in those different research spaces, you're going to figure out a little bit more about the audience. But you also need to understand your goals. What do you want them to do? And how are you going to measure your progress towards getting them to do it? Your approach, that's like the Conservatory and the Candlestick part. Your channels, a little bit more conservatory, deeper into the Conservatory. Your tactics, the particulars of your implementation, and then your budget. How much time do you have? What's your talents in? What kind of resources do you have to work with? So in this audience that, you know, we looked at for Highball TV, when I seek entertainment, you know, that one, we were able to create a bit of a profile from there. This group lives to find and support obscure media and will likely fall in love with Highball TV's pitch of bringing the film festival to you. It's not an enormous group, but the members are interconnected, middle class, digital savvy, and they like to talk about their discoveries, and nurturing them will help with early engagement. That's the audience. So we understand a lot more about the audience. Now it's time to set goals. So, okay, you know them, but what do you want them to do? I mean, obviously Highball wants them to sign up for their streaming service, but that's sort of like the end goal. What you need to do is set goals, and you need to think about them in this way. Specific, what do you want to achieve? Measurable, and you guys are knowing where I'm going with this, how you'll understand your progress. Attainable, is the goal realistic for your resources? Relevant, how does this tie back to your ultimate goal of maybe selling memberships? On time-based, have you put a timeline on it, like by when? And you've seen SMART goal before a lot of times, but the next slide, I get to break down an example, and this will show you how this all works together beautifully. So a wonderful example of a SMART goal, I totally stole from HubSpot. They have a lot of great content, but their specific goal was boost blog traffic by increasing publishing frequency from 5 to 8 times a week. This will require 2 writers to post 3 times per week and an editor to write 2 posts a week. That's really nice and specific. This is exactly what they're going to do and what they need to do it. Now they're going to be, well, now that they've put a measurability in it. They want an 8% increase, right? They want to see an 8% increase in their blog traffic. Great. Is this attainable? Well, you know, sometimes you've probably heard like, oh, we want 1 million followers. Well, maybe that's not attainable. But how you measure attainable is, hey, has this happened before? Do I have a previous, or is there either a time when this previously happened for me, or is there a case study out there or a benchmark that you can find that shows that this worked? Well, according to them, blog traffic increased by 5% when they increased from 3 to 5 times a week. So, you know, this is attainable. Is it relevant though? Is boosting blog traffic going to be relevant to their ultimate goal? Oh, well, yeah, because it boosts brand awareness and generates more leads, giving sales more opportunities. Great. And they probably have that from previous. And then time bound, they want to do this by the end of this month. All right, so let's go, right? So at the end of the month, their SMART goal is increase the blog traffic by 8% by increasing weekly publishing frequency from 5 to 8 posts. Now, you will probably have much bigger goals, but it's really important to break down. And when you start planning the tactics and the channels, you're going to want to assign SMART goals to pretty much everything you decide to do through those. Your approach includes positioning, your messaging, your tagline, how you're different from anybody else, your elevator pitch. It's your visuals. I think that's where we usually kind of think of approach is like, oh, your logo, your graphics, your look and feel, your illustrations. That's part of your approach, but it's not the only part of your approach. There's media types. Are you going to write articles, videos? Are you going to start a podcast? Are you going to do memes? And you can't do it all. So what is your approach? And that, of course, is going to tie back to your audience, right? So for your approach, you're going to want to go back to that audience and like understand where they're at once again and what gets their attention. What's that candlestick? This is where that approach comes into play. So cinephiles, we found, derive joy from discovering new things, exploring new depths, and connecting with others who share this joy. And so our approach was leaning into that obscurity, the geekiness in the community, use jargon and deep geek speak. So like tropes, hermeneutic, things that only this audience uses, and go to the edges with that content and get giddy about the geekiness. And then where you're going to find them. Well, cinephiles, we found their big platform was Twitter and then Reddit. So this is in order, YouTube, Instagram, and then these are offline. And I think one of the first questions was all around that, but it's like film festivals, independent theaters, coffee shop, lectures. So these are the channels. So you can create channel plans, channel strategies on how you're going to reach them through those channels. And the tactics are how you're going to reach them on those channels, right? So there are 3 major categories in tactics. There's the owned. These are the ones within our control: videos, publications, websites, email. I do not necessarily put social media fully in owned. I think it's like rented. There's earned. This is the free promotions channel where people mention us or our community spreads the word for us, word of mouth happens. And then paid. These are the ones that we pay for to get in front of our audience. On the own side, you want your content to be shareable. You want to leverage that socialness, the sociability of that audience to the umpteenth degree. So you're going to want to have these 3 characteristics, or at least a few of these 3 characteristics, to make your content totally shareable. Number 1 is it needs to be useful. It needs to empower, teach, help, reward, or make somebody smarter. Remember that analogy, are you like the vitamin painkiller or performance enhancer? There you go, makes them smarter. Relatable, empathizes, connects, speaks to you, sees and understands. Do you get me? Do you use my language? And number 3, and a lot of people understand this one, is emotional, amuses, shocks, riles up, inspires, or fills with awe. And a lot of people focus on this 3rd one, but these first 2 can be so super powerful. And these are some good examples of owned content, that useful content. So, those videos, those tasty videos, those they're not as like huge as they once were, but I've watched more than one of them to help me cook a dish. Those are super useful. This is my video on fair use. It's like, I don't know how many, I think it's up to about 200,000 views now. And then, those fun, like life hacks kind of videos, those are really popular too. Those are useful content tips and tricks, right? And those are going to have a long tail of benefits. You're going to have a lot of SEO over time. They may not be sexy and they may not go viral, but their long tail will really be good for you. There's the relatable content. These are all about seeing your audience, right? Like that, like 31 things introverts hate to hear, the old BuzzFeed stuff. Well, like this is what's going to connect with your audience. So, things like this, like when you say bye to someone and both of you leave in the same direction, so awkward. I love this meme. This is a really specific one to artists, like drawings I have to finish, drawings I've already finished. And like you see these on Instagram, right? Those funny these are the things that connect with people. They make them, they make them laugh, which goes into the emotional content. This first video, I'm not going to play right now, but if you haven't seen it, it's a Google video. That's just so wonderful. It tells a story through search. Like hilarious things like this. Cannabis industry is really full of hilarious stuff, and also riles people up. Another cannabis example, right? That, you know, that is also an emotional side of content. And then of course there's adorable, wonderful, like little puppies and kittens, and those also belong in this category. But either way, use one or two or preferably all three of these as part of making your content more shareable. And then it's important to balance content types in general. You're going to have to talk about your business and stuff as well, and you're going to want to talk about trends and jump on trends, right? So there's timely, which is in the moment, and evergreen. This is content that lasts forever, versus the promotional, that's about me or about my brand, and the engagement, which is about my audience. So in the promotional evergreen, there's your about me. Timely, ads, sales, press releases about me. Engagement, this is where those shareable content types come into play. And then last but not least, you do want to participate in those memes, current events, trends, holiday, popular culture. Jump on those bandwagons, but only when they're applicable. Do not jump on every bandwagon. And this is the balance that you're going to be looking at when you're looking at content. The majority of it should be shareable, and then a smaller amount should be in the promotional about me category. And of course, keep your eyes open for trends. Earned tactics. I'm not going to, I know I'm getting to the end of this, so I'm just going to like hop down these, but they're basically these things like, you know, PR, SEO, search traffic. Increasing your SEO can go a long way. Getting your, you know, encouraging reviews and social media members from mentions from your customers that are happy, user generated content, creating challenges and hashtags, word of mouth, all that stuff, speaking opportunities, collaborations. These are all earned tactics, ways to get others to mention you to drive traffic to what you're doing. Some really fun tips. So ways to get more earned coverage: subscribe to help a reporter out, pitch yourself to speak at conferences and events, hobnob with influencers, journalists and community on social media constantly. I've seen so many people go so far just like making friends on Twitter with influencers. Get involved in great causes, apply for awards, attend as many events as possible. Well, I guess nowadays it's not as applicable, but there's online events and there's plenty of interacting there. And encourage your happy customers to leave reviews. Give them links, reward them for it. And of course, promote a unique hashtag or challenge that people will jump on. So don't make it super branded, make it something that's relatable to them. And then you're going to see other people spread the word for you, which is the best. Paid tactics, you know, across every platform, there's a ton of different ways to leverage paid. And the best part of paid is that you can focus in on, and this is how I use paid to hit the right target, hit that exact right person. That Facebook tool that I showed you is actually to build audiences for their ads. So if you're going to use Facebook ads, perfect. But like, these should always anything that you put paid money into should always drive back to your own properties wherever you can. And then I created like a little benchmarks for what you'd be paying. It's actually not very expensive to start experimenting with paid and see what kind of response you're getting. It's also a good way to sort of test your messaging. What are people clicking on and interacting with versus what they're not? So now you're going to bring it all together, get your tactical ducks in a row and take stock of that budget. So you need your goals, approach, channels, tactics, and budget, right? So this is what I like to do is like platform number 1, platform number 2, platform number 3, platform number 4, and like put your tactics together. So for the for our friends at Highball Twitter, we're going to use Twitter chats, live tweet festivals, post indie film memes. On Reddit, AMAs with directors, create a subreddit. TIFF, we were going to create a meetup. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because TIFF got canceled this year. Well, it just went online. And then Instagram. So these are the 4 platforms, and the most we were going to put in the top and a little bit on the bottom. And these are like the tactical breakdowns that we're looking at. And, but, you know, if you don't have a lot of time, you're going to want to take stock and ask, you know, do you have all the resources to handle all this? If you need to eliminate tactics, you know, which ones will you remove? Like, remove the ones on the bottom. Start with one and really nail it, and then build on it from there. And then it's, you know, it's better to start simple and then build on that momentum. And understand that things take a lot of time. And this is like for hiring somebody, but when you're starting out, everything takes a little bit longer. Like I always say, add time to it. So if you're writing an article, it's kind of a day of work, you know? So all of this stuff takes time. So in summary, finding your audience, super, super duper important. You need to narrow them. And I just hopefully gave you some great audience research and insights, some free research tools to look at. And hopefully you got some, you know, I put a lot of information in this very short amount of time, but, you know, hopefully you'll have some good nuggets here. I'll make sure that Robin has the deck in order to share it with you afterwards. And this is Phlywheel. We have a Slack group and a knowledge center that's full of the specific tools that we use, that you can access, and recommendations and strategies and stuff. And so I have the first 5 questions, get a Phlywheel membership, and I already have questions. So I'm going to stop this share and pull your questions up.
Yeah.
Hi, do we have time? Can I do this still?
Yeah, well, I'll manage the questions for you. Sit back and relax, and I'm gonna manage the questions. That was amazing,
Awesome.
by the way.
Oh,
And
good.
thank you for being able to share it with us. You know, that's gonna go up on the site. I know that I'm going to go back to it myself and make more notes, because, you know, it's just become such a dynamic but complicated, you know, area of marketing. And I think that as much as we think we know, there's a wealth of knowledge there that that I know that we all kind of need to tap into to really understand the landscape of digital marketing. So that is absolutely brilliant. So here we go. I'm going to get to the questions. Okay. Meredith, she asks, what's the secret to grow your social media audience and get your fans to engage?
Oh, well, that's a huge question, Meredith, but let me see what I can do to answer it. So number one, it is like growing your social media audience in the early days is slow going. And especially now, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a ton of, you know, influencers or whatever. But if you want to do it organically, you want to do it right, you basically do what I was talking about in the early research section. You start to engage with other people who are influential in that area. You follow those hashtags, you jump into those conversations, you add value to those conversations. And what's going to happen is, like, people are going to start to sit up and take notice. Maybe not day one, maybe not week one, but after, like, you coming and showing up, and sometimes the secret is just showing up over and over again, more and more people will follow you. And I've you know, been so surprised over the years. Like, I'll be like, who is this person that just keeps showing up and like liking my tweets and like answering and having conversations? And then next thing I know, I look at their account, they've gone from like 10 followers to 10,000, and they're like tweeting out like amazing things. So don't start with talking, start with like listening and engaging. So that's what I would say, is you start by engaging with people, and then people will eventually come around to engaging with you. And once you pick up the momentum and you're consistent and you're adding value consistently, you'll be, you know, you'll take off.
Absolutely. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, but there's also something to be said about understanding the algorithms of each platform. And I mean, they're always changing, but they sometimes do make an announcement like, hey, you know, that they're creating a new one. And I think understanding that as well is helpful, because if you're not using the platform and all the different elements, for example, LinkedIn just updated theirs. Now they have stories, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And so,
Everybody has stories. So much.
right? And so from my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, they want you to usually use the platform on a daily basis. They want you to use the
Mhm.
story section, put up a document, put up a video, and so to use it in the most holistic and a varied way as possible. Is that true? And also helping to, get more noticed in the feed?
Yeah, so you're bang on. And I think the key thing to know is that all these platforms, they have a goal. And their goal is to keep people on their platforms.
Yes.
That's how they make money.
Hence
So
the
if
social dilemma, if you haven't watched it.
yeah, totally. But so if you're spending time, you're being consistent, you're showing up, you're engaging with people and encouraging them to come back and to have conversations and add to conversations. They'll be like, "Oh, I like you, Robin. You're creating all sorts of like engagement on my platform. I'm gonna give you like reward you and put you in the feed more." So at the end of the day, like the platforms will reward those who are engaging more with the platform. So you need to engage first.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And consistently.
Yes. This question comes from Angie. So if you only had time to focus on just one social media platform, which would it be?
Oh boy. I mean, my original love and fave, it has always been Twitter. It's lightweight, it's conversational. I mean, it's been a little bit more toxic lately. Hopefully it will not be as toxic after the election. Um, but and hopefully I like some of the new changes they put in. I went to go retweet an article, and just so you know, I already read this article somewhere else, but I hadn't clicked on it when I went to go retweet it. And they said, "Are you sure? Did you read the article?" And I'm like, that is smart.
Yes, that's a
Yeah,
nice addition. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that.
So hopefully they're making some positive changes to improve the like the behavior on these platforms. But yeah, I love Twitter, and I don't know if I'll ever fall out of love with Twitter. I fell out of love with Facebook years ago. I'm still okay on Instagram, but I feel like it's just, for me, Instagram feels a little more staged. It's not my fave. I do love YouTube, but it's a lot of work to say, and it's not as social. Like it's more like a it feels a little more
Yes.
broadcasty. And I do really well on LinkedIn, but I find it's a little stifled. Twitter is like, I feel like I can have better, deeper conversations on Twitter.
I agree. It's just naturally, it has always been much more
Yeah.
engaging than any other platform. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And Angie, like, really, it's whatever's for you, right? If you feel comfortable, if you feel like more comfortable and you really get a jive going on Facebook, that's fine. That'll be your groove. So that at the end of the day, but mine is Twitter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This comes in from Jasmine, and she asks, how much time or how many people do you tend to budget for your audience research? That's an interesting.
So I put probably more time than anybody would find reasonable into audience research, and it never ends, right? There's a big bunch of it at the beginning. So I just finished a research project for a client, um, and I put over 1,000 hours and 6 weeks of work into this research. They had already had like McKinsey or somebody
Yeah.
do like this big audience analysis, but they didn't do it in the way that I do it, which is what you just saw, is like really spending that time with an audience. But I'll continue to sit with that audience and receive, like I'll do things like uh, subscribe to the newsletters that they would get, and I follow those hashtags. I put on alerts, and I like join all these groups and stuff and get those, alerts. And I start to like kind of, my husband calls me a method researcher, like a method actor, when you like immerse yourself into the culture. And like, he's like, who are you? Why? Like, I did one when I was actually doing a research project where the audience was like, women who were like big into like the girl riot movement in the 90s. And I started like dressing different, and my husband was like, okay, this is and I was playing punk music. But yeah, like that's kind of, if it's your company and that's your audience, that's a really good thing to do. So, just think of it, less about like how many exact hours or how many people, and just think about like what it would take for you to immerse yourself into your audience enough to like feel like you know them intimately.
Absolutely. Okay, this next question comes in from Anupa, and she asks, any tips on how to look for audience interest in a B2B setting? So she works for a manufacturing company.
Yeah, so I love B2B space, especially for research, because it's not as easy. It's a bit of a challenge because they're not like, usually the more senior, or like the senior level, or the more offline the industry is. So manufacturing they're getting more and more like technical, but they don't necessarily have time. They're not hanging out on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, right? So it becomes a bit of a challenge. But I absolutely, these are my favorites. So in that case, I'll go to check out these areas and probably not find much, but where I will find the nuggets is starting to go into like trade publications.
Right.
So I'll look for all of the different, basically what you call watering holes. They're online, they usually have an online version of the magazine that they would get. There's conferences, associations, and there's quite often like, they'll have blogs, they may have like even forums and like discussion boards, things like that. But I will subscribe to all of the trade association newsletters there is, and you start to see like people being celebrated, and usually they have like a beautiful small world. Like manufacturing has a million different like subcategories, right? And so you find like the trade publications for your particular subcategories, and probably everybody knows each other in that group on some level. And you'll find all those questions that I have, like who do they follow, like who are their thought leaders, like what are those, where are they, what are they reading, what events do they go to? Like right now, a lot of them are going to webinars, right? For the first time in a long, ever, right? And you can go to those webinars and probably in the chat, like get to know each other a little bit. So yeah, that's where I would start. And then when we can go offline again, like attend the events. There's any trade shows and stuff, like even if you're not there with your company selling something, just go and walk around to the booths and go to the cocktail hour and talk to people at lunch. That's the best way to do that research.
I agree. This question comes in from Kay. So how do you recommend reaching those audiences that still may be persuaded to come to events, or creating that message to a hyper cautious audience?
Yes, Kay, you were the one that lost position because in-person events are just not happening. So I guess you're still doing some in-person events. I mean, I think so. One of my best friends is Event Pro, and what she did really early on, and I thought was really smart, was started like really building relationships with the audience that would come to the physical events before, and just communicating a lot. So they did some online like webinar things, some fun things they did actually, some virtual happy hours and stuff with their, you know, because she deals with realtors. Um, and then as people were kind of like dancing back out, she just communicated a lot about like safety measures that were put into place. Um, like got really inventive when it came to how people would mingle in these offline spaces and stuff. And then just like, yeah, it was a little bit slow going in the beginning, but they would, you know, she would post lots of pictures showing how people were still having fun with the safety measures. And then people got, you know, started to feel a little bit safer. So yeah, I know it's hard and it's going to be a little while before people feel fully ready to come back. But as I was saying to Kay, at the, you know, I typed out, I think people are craving human connection. And as soon as as soon as we have the what do you call that, the inoculation, why am I only thinking the word inoculation, the yeah, as soon as, yeah, thank you, vaccine, as soon as we have, god, where's my brain, you know, people will be like, yeah, okay, I'm going out, I'm gonna hug everybody, I'm gonna see it, like people will be back, and events I think will be special at that point, so be ready for it, Kay.
Like I said, I mean, you guys threw a fabulous launch event. It was so fun and it was so engaging. So sure, not in person, you know, not offline, but it was just so much fun and so engaging, and all the little tidbits that you did in there, like, you know, we had to like answer certain questions and all of that, like it was just really, really well done. So I feel that there's a way to do things now that sure,
Mhm.
it's not gonna be that physical kind of connection and seeing people, the physical and hugging them and whatnot, but I feel like there is a way to get really creative online and virtually and try your best to create a nice experience. So it is
Yeah.
possible. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And just for those that weren't at the event, which is probably everybody here except for Robin, um, we had a special appearance by Llama. And so there's fun stuff you can do that kind of surprises and delights even a virtual audience. And it's like the name is Goat to Meeting, they were calling it. And you donate to Sweet Farms, and it's like $100 you donate, and they'll have a goat or a llama or a cow or somebody from one of their animals from their farms just like show up in your meeting. And it's just, it's like, it's one of those things that it's a little touch that makes it memorable for people.
yeah, and that we need right now, you
Yeah,
know, even in the virtual world.
yeah.
These last two questions because, like, yes, I know that we're like, you know, over time, but this has been so amazing. So let me get to the last questions, and then we have to name the winners for the membership. So here we go, quickly. Angie asks, what's a hashtag contest?
Oh, so I think when I mentioned like the like the hashtag, what was it? Actually, it wasn't a contest, it was a challenge,
Yes.
right? So hashtag challenge is when you put out a challenge to people who are following you or following your business. And usually like in that challenge, there's one of several prizes. So you guys might have heard many years ago, there was a cinnamon challenge. You guys remember that? Where, so the prize, there was no prize for the cinnamon challenge. And while the ice bucket challenge was part of it too, there was no prize except for it was a silly, fun thing to do to involve in the community. And it started out slow, but once it took off, everybody wanted to try the cinnamon or dump, you know, all famous people got involved with the ice bucket challenge.
Challenge, are you kidding? Was so successful.
So the hashtag part of it like makes it so that it ties all together, right? So the ice bucket challenge had the ice bucket challenge hashtag, so you could click on that hashtag and see all the people that were doing it, and then it became really very exciting. So if you have an organization, or, you know, you have just a passion about something, or your business, you know, you can think of something interesting that people would want to engage in. It could also be something that, like, I think when you do it for charity, more and more people will be incited to engage in it too. So that's what a hashtag challenge is. There was one that was recently going on that was like, I couldn't quite figure out where it came from, and I don't think I ever did, but it was like challenge accepted, and there was women
Oh,
were posting black and white photos
that
of themselves.
went to the wayside, because, and that's a story for another day.
Yeah,
Had good intentions, but yes, and it was actually very successful. Women had to post a black and white photo of themselves,
yeah,
and then, you know, hashtag challenge accepted, and then you
pass
tag
it along.
women. Yes, so you wanted to do so. That, yes,
Yeah,
that's a great example. Okay,
yeah.
final quick question. Hopefully we can make it quick. Okay, so if you only had 1 hour, this comes from Ashley, 1 hour to conduct audience research for a client, what would you do, Tara? What would you focus on? That's a tough.
If I had only had 1 hour, I'd use one of my expensive tools that I use. Um, yeah, so I didn't talk about the expensive tools because I figure like most people want like the free tools first, but there is one that is free to use for the first 10 searches, and then after that you pay for it. It's called Spark Toro. SparkToro. You might have had Rand Fishkin on your up level before. If you haven't, you might want to. He's a smart, really cool guy. But it's his company, and it's really cool. You put in like an interest or a hashtag, and it shows basically all of it's sort of like the Facebook one, but then for all the platforms.
Oh,
And so if I say like cinephile in my bio or whatever, and then it pulls up all of the other things that cinephiles like on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, podcasts they listen to,
wow.
websites they visit, hashtags they use, where they live, like it's pretty cool.
Oh,
So if I only had 1 hour, I would do a bit of a data pull on that. Now, of course, that wouldn't necessarily work if we're looking at like a manufacturing industry necessarily. That would be a different thing. But if it was, more social media focused, that's what I would do. I hope
okay.
that helps.
Sparkturo, right? I think
Oh,
I
Toro
wrote it.
with like this. It is sparktoro.com.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been amazing, incredible. We even had, so Emily just said that this has been one of the most useful presentations on digital marketing I've ever attended.
Hey, thank you, Emily. That's awesome.
Okay, and it has. And again, we will be sure to post this session on our site as soon as we can get to it in our little 2-person team. But before we end, I want to announce the 5 winners of the free Phlywheel membership. Here goes. It's Meredith, Angie, Jasmine, Anupa, and Kay. If you are still here and listening, please, Kay, we got Angie, Meredith, Anupa, Jasmine, Kay, are you still with us? If you are, just say yay, or I'm here, or thank you, or anything. Jasmine, awesome. Meredith, Anupa, and Kay. Anupa, wonderful, you're here. 2 more. Kay, are you here?
I hope she might have had to. Oh, good, she's still there. Yeah.
And Meredith, let's see if Meredith is still here. I don't know. I'm feeling.
Somebody had to leave earlier. I saw out of the corner of my eye.
So, okay. Well, I'm going to randomly choose someone else. So, Ashley, you are also a winner. I'm putting my email in here. So, everyone who has won, please make note of my email. It's robin@moveuplevel.com. Send me an email, and what I'll do is I will hit reply. I'm going to CC Tara, and I'm going to get you guys connected so that you can get your free Phlywheel membership.
Yeah. Excellent.
Robin@moveuplevel.com. Tara, this has been amazing. And I know that, you know, I feel like once we actually get your deck up there, people are going to be accessing that a lot because, you know, you probably have one of the more in-depth and just really awesome explanations of really getting a solid digital marketing strategy put together and really understanding each of the platforms and how to leverage them. So I'm so thrilled, grateful, and thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet everybody. Can't wait to see you on Phlywheel.
Thank you
Bye
for
now.
being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we will have an answer about this election real soon.
Oh.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Tara. Thank
Bye.
you.